That's all I need. That's all I need.
I was carrying 3 heavy grocery bags when it suddenly started to rain. I ran to the bus stop, but the bus splashed a puddle all over my pants. Then my bag tore and the apples rolled everywhere. A dog grabbed one and ran off happily. I sighed and picked up what I could. At that moment, my phone slipped from my hand and hit the ground. I looked at the sky and whispered, "That's all I need."
Maybe next time. Maybe next time.
Lena's grandma made a new soup and asked everyone to try it. The soup was bright purple and smelled strange. Lena took a tiny sip and her face froze. Grandma asked, "Do you want more, dear?" Lena shook her head fast. She tried to smile, but her eyes were watering. "Maybe next time," she said, putting the spoon down carefully.
I'm leaving for the day. I'm leaving for the day.
The office was a disaster today. The printer jammed, the internet kept crashing, and someone spilled coffee on the meeting notes. My boss was stressed and kept calling everyone at the same time. By 4:30, I felt my brain melting. I packed my laptop, stood up quietly, and walked to the door. "I'm leaving for the day," I said before anyone could stop me.
No one will know. No one will know.
I accidentally dropped my brother's favorite cookie and it broke into 3 pieces. Instead of throwing it away, I pressed the pieces together and put it back on the plate. My brother walked in and asked, "Did you touch my cookie?" I smiled innocently. No one will know, I thought. He picked it up and it immediately fell apart in his hand. He just stared at me. I walked away slowly.
I can't say for sure. I can't say for sure.
My teacher asked me why I didn't bring my homework. I scratched my head and said, "I can't say for sure, but I think I left it on my desk." Then I remembered seeing my cat sitting on the papers this morning. Maybe she pushed them off, or maybe I put them in the wrong folder. The teacher looked at me suspiciously. "So you didn't do it?" I whispered. "I can't say for sure."
See you around. See you around.
I kept meeting the same girl at the café every morning, first at the counter, then at the milk station, then again by the door. We laughed about it and joked that the café was too small. One day, we reached for the same sugar packet at the same time. She smiled and said, "We really keep running into each other." As she walked out, she waved and said, "See you around." And honestly, I hoped I would.
It couldn't be better. It couldn't be better.
Maya took her grandma to the park. The weather was warm and the sky was clear. They found a nice bench under a tree. Kids were playing and a dog was running in circles. Grandma ate her ice cream and started smiling. Maya felt happy just watching her. Grandma sighed happily and said, "It couldn't be better."
Let's get off the subject. Let's get off the subject.
At dinner, my uncle started asking me about my future plans again. Job, house, marriage, everything. I nearly choked on my rice. My aunt joined in and added even more questions. I felt my face burning. I raised both hands and said, "Please, let's get off the subject." Everyone laughed and finally changed the topic to food. I could breathe again.
Don't be nosy. Don't be nosy.
Tom's sister kept trying to read his messages over his shoulder. She leaned closer and closer until Tom had to hide his phone behind his back. "Who are you texting?" she asked. Tom stepped away from her. She smiled like she knew a secret. Tom pointed at her and said, "Don't be nosy." She laughed and walked away.
Hold the line. Hold the line.
Carlos called the pet shop to ask about dog food. The worker said, "Hold the line," and put him on hold. Carlos waited and heard someone shouting, "The parrot is out again." Then he heard the parrot making loud noises. Someone else yelled, "Catch it!" Carlos tried not to laugh. The worker came back and said, "Thanks for holding the line," like nothing happened.
That was a close call. That was a close call.
Jake was driving home after work when a big truck suddenly changed lanes in front of him. He hit the brakes as fast as he could, and his car slid a little on the road. For a second, he thought he was going to crash. The truck driver honked loudly and sped away. Jake's hands were shaking as he tried to breathe normally again. Jake wiped the sweat from his forehead and whispered, "That was a close call."
It must be rough for him. It must be rough for him.
Tom saw his neighbor, Mr. Harris, sitting on the front steps late in the evening. His clothes were dirty, and he looked very tired. Tom walked over and asked if everything was okay. Mr. Harris explained that his old car broke down again, and he had to walk almost an hour to get home from work. He also said he might lose his job if he keeps arriving late. Tom whispered to himself, "It must be rough for him."
I saw it myself. I saw it myself.
Laura was walking her dog early in the morning when she heard a strange noise coming from behind the bushes. She thought it was just a cat, but suddenly a small raccoon ran out holding someone's sandwich. The raccoon looked at her and then ran away like a thief. Later that day, Laura told her brother what she saw. He laughed and said, "Come on, raccoons don't steal sandwiches." Laura crossed her arms and shook her head. "I'm serious," she said. "I saw it myself."
You're a chicken. You're a chicken.
Ben and Max were standing at the edge of the swimming pool. Max said he would jump first, but when he looked at the water, he stepped back. Ben crossed his arms and teased, "Come on, just jump." Max shook his head and refused again. Ben laughed and shouted, "You're a chicken." Max took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and finally jumped with a big splash.
Give it a little more. Give it a little more.
I was trying to open a jar of pasta sauce for lunch, but the lid wouldn't move at all. I held it tight and twisted as hard as I could, but it still didn't budge. My hands were starting to hurt and I almost gave up. My sister walked by and said, "Give it a little more." I took a deep breath, tried one last time, and suddenly the lid popped open so fast that the sauce splashed a little. I smiled and said, "Okay, maybe I gave it a little too much."
It could be just a rumor. It could be just a rumor.
At the office, everyone whispered that the boss was leaving the company. Some said he got a new job. Others said he wanted to travel the world. Mia listened quietly and shook her head. "We don't know anything for sure," she said. "It could be just a rumor." Her coworkers nodded, but 5 minutes later, they started guessing again.
Barking up the wrong tree. Barking up the wrong tree.
Sarah found her boyfriend, Alex, holding a perfume bottle and looking angry. He asked, "Whose perfume is this?" even though Sarah had never seen it before. Right then, their neighbor, Emily, ran over and said, "Oops, that's mine. I dropped it earlier." Alex's face turned red. Sarah crossed her arms and said, "See, you were barking up the wrong tree."
I suppose you could say that. I suppose you could say that.
During lunch, Clara's friend asked if her new job was fun. Clara hesitated. The job was fine, but her coworkers talked nonstop about their cats. Clara smiled politely and said, "It's interesting." Her friend raised an eyebrow. "So you like it?" Clara shrugged. "I suppose you could say that," she said, though she wasn't sure at all.
Don't take me for a fool. Don't take me for a fool.
Jenny noticed her younger brother, Leo, sneaking into the kitchen with his pockets full and a guilty look on his face. When she asked what he was hiding, he smiled too big and said, "Nothing, just air." She crossed her arms, knowing that look all too well. Leo tried to run upstairs, but a chocolate bar fell out of his pocket. Jenny said, "Don't take me for a fool." Leo sighed and handed her the rest of the candy slowly.
I'm on your side. I'm on your side.
Sophie was nervous about presenting her project in front of the class. Her friend Mia saw her shaking hands and sat beside her. "It's okay," Mia whispered. "You worked hard." Sophie still looked scared. Mia gently held her hand and said, "Don't worry, I'm on your side." Sophie smiled a little and finally stood up to present.
Good grief. Good grief.
Emma opened her fridge and found that her little brother had put his dirty soccer socks right next to the strawberries. She picked up the container, and the smell almost knocked her out. She stared at the socks in shock. Just then, her brother walked in and said, "Hey, have you seen my lucky socks?" Emma pointed at the fridge with wide eyes. "Good grief," she said. "Keep them away from the food."
It's almost over. It's almost over.
Lily was sitting in the dentist's chair, shaking like a leaf. The dentist gently checked her tooth and said, "Relax, it's almost over." Lily squeezed her eyes shut as the drill made a buzzing sound. She felt her hands sweating through the gloves they gave her. After a minute, the dentist said, "There, all done." Lily slowly opened one eye. "All ready?" she asked. The dentist nodded, smiling.
Stay where you are. Stay where you are.
Tom was helping his mom clean the living room when he spotted a big spider on the wall. He froze and whispered, "Mom, don't move." His mom looked confused and started walking toward him. Tom panicked and shouted, "Stay where you are." She stopped and finally saw the spider too. Tom grabbed a cup while shaking slightly. After a long minute, he managed to trap it. "Okay," he sighed. "We survived."
It's the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in the room.
During the family dinner, everyone talked loudly about food, weather, and TV shows. But no one mentioned that Grandma had dyed her hair bright blue. The whole table kept glancing at her, but no one dared say anything. Finally, Uncle Mark leaned forward and whispered, "We all see it, right?" Aunt Lisa nodded quickly. "Yes," she said, "it's the elephant in the room." Grandma smiled proudly and said, "Do you like it?"
Let's get going. Let's get going.
Sarah and Mia were waiting for their bus, but it was already 20 minutes late. Sarah checked the schedule again, then looked down the empty street. Mia sighed loudly. Finally, Sarah grabbed her friend's arm and said, "Let's get going. We'll walk instead." Mia groaned but followed her. After 2 minutes, the bus suddenly passed right by them. They both stared, tired and annoyed. "Of course," Sarah whispered.
Drop by any time. Drop by any time.
Mrs. Kim had just moved into the neighborhood when her next-door neighbor knocked on the door with a basket of cookies. They talked for a moment, and Mrs. Kim explained she didn't know many people around. The neighbor smiled warmly and said, "Don't worry, drop by any time." Mrs. Kim felt relieved. Later that day, she opened the basket and found a note inside saying, "Welcome." It made her smile for the rest of the week.
That will do. That will do.
James was helping his dad wash the car for the first time. He kept spraying water everywhere, even on himself. Then he used way too much soap and made huge bubbles all over the driveway. His dad laughed and told him to slow down. After watching him scrub for a minute, his dad put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Okay, that will do." James smiled proudly, even though he was covered in foam.
We share the same point of view. We share the same point of view.
During a group project, Kevin and Nora were discussing the best way to design their poster. Kevin suggested using bright colors and simple text. Nora's eyes lit up. "Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking," she said. They both reached for the same marker and laughed. "Looks like we share the same point of view," Kevin said. Their teamwork suddenly felt a lot easier.
Let me get back to you in a few minutes. Let me get back to you in a few minutes.
Mason asked his boss if he could take Friday off for a short trip. His boss looked at his calendar and frowned. "We're a bit busy this week," he said. Mason waited nervously. The boss tapped his pen and finally said, "Let me get back to you in a few minutes." Mason nodded and walked outside, hoping for good news. 10 minutes later, the boss called him back with a smile.
When are you due? When are you due?
At the supermarket, a shopper looked at Anna's big, baggy sweater and asked, "When are you due?" Anna froze and turned bright red. She quickly explained, "I'm not pregnant. I'm just carrying 3 jackets and some snacks under here." The shopper gasped and apologized. Anna laughed awkwardly and said, "It's okay." She walked away, deciding to never wear that sweater again in public.
Everything is so rushed. Everything is so rushed.
Daniel worked at a small café during the morning rush. People were shouting orders, the coffee machine beeped nonstop, and someone spilled milk on the counter. Daniel tried to keep up, but it felt impossible. His coworker passed by and said, "Breathe, Daniel." Daniel sighed and wiped his forehead. "Everything is so rushed," he said. His coworker patted his shoulder and handed him a cookie.
I'm going to leave it up to you. I'm going to leave it up to you.
Sophie and her sister were choosing a movie for the night. Sophie wanted a comedy, but her sister wanted an action movie. They argued for a full minute until Sophie gave up. She threw her hands in the air and said, "Fine, I'm going to leave it up to you." Her sister smiled like she won a prize. Sophie leaned back on the couch and said, "Just pick something with snacks."
What would you prefer? What would you prefer?
At the ice cream shop, the worker asked Liam, "Vanilla or chocolate?" Liam stared at the menu for a long time. The worker laughed gently and said, "What would you prefer?" Liam bit his lip and said, "Both." The worker raised an eyebrow, but made him a swirl cone. Liam took one bite and smiled. "This was the right choice," he said.
Under the weather. Under the weather.
Nina stayed home from school because she wasn't feeling well. Her mom brought her soup and tucked her into bed. Nina's cat curled up beside her, purring softly. When her friend called to ask why she wasn't at school, Nina said, "I'm just a little under the weather." Her friend told her to rest and promised to bring homework later. Nina closed her eyes and fell asleep almost instantly.
Hang in there. Hang in there.
Jake was struggling to finish his painting for art class. He had already erased the face 3 times and was ready to give up. His older sister walked by and saw him groaning at his desk. She patted his back and said, "Hang in there." Jake sighed but kept drawing. After a few minutes, the picture finally started to look good. He smiled a little, feeling better.
Here he comes. Here he comes.
The students were chatting loudly before the teacher arrived. Suddenly, Lily saw the teacher walking down the hallway. She stood up and whispered, "Here he comes." Everyone hurried back to their seats. The room went silent in 2 seconds. When the teacher entered, he looked around and raised an eyebrow. "Wow," he said, "so quiet today." The students pretended nothing happened.
That's all I need. Maybe next time. I'm leaving for the day. No one will know. I can't say for sure. See you around. It couldn't be better. Let's get off the subject. Don't be nosy. Hold the line. That was a close call. It must be rough for him. I saw it myself. You're a chicken. Give it a little more. It could be just a rumor. Barking up the wrong tree. I suppose you could say that. Don't take me for a fool. I'm on your side. Good grief. It's almost over. Stay where you are. It's the elephant in the room. Let's get going. Drop by anytime. That will do. We share the same point of view. Let me get back to you in a few minutes. When are you due? Everything is so rushed. I'm going to leave it up to you. What would you prefer? Under the weather. Hang in there. Here he comes.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video fun and interesting. If you haven't already, feel free to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest videos. Wishing you all an amazing day. Take care and see you next time.